Easy now. Papa got things making headlines.
Come down. Ooh, you make my high come down. Always tripping when you come around. I'ma have to cut you off, like right now. You see, I don't want to drive me. You can say that for your mama. Maybe you should smoke some. Me try the marijuana. I was never you good. The vibe was straight. Showed you a couple of things and they ain't finna change. I treated you right. Everything was a gift from a time to your bag and the color on your lip. Yeah, you plenty of.
Welcome to the Seahawks Man-to-Man podcast, powered by The Athletic. Shout out to the company. My name is Michael Sean Dugar. You can follow me on the tweet machine at Mike Dugar. That is MikeDugar. Sad time. No longer verified on Twitter. Elon, that was cold, brother. Elon, that was cold. Anyway, Chris, talk to him.
What is good, everybody? It's your boy, Christopher Kidd. Be sure to follow me on Twitter at CKIDD206, and that's CKid206.
Chris, this is one of my favorite times of the year where after the draft is over, the Seahawks did their thing, and me and you don't have to really dive too deep into it because we have the best in the business joining us on the show to talk about the Seahawks 2023 NFL draft class. We have NFL draft analyst for The Athletic, producer of The Beast on The Athletic, the best draft guide there is. Dane Brugler is back on the show with us. Dane, welcome back, sir.
I have to agree with you. My favorite time of year is right after the draft as well, because that means all the work has been put in. Instead of guessing where these guys are going to end up, we're reflecting on where they did go, and that's a lot of fun. As much as I love the process, I do also love this part of the calendar where we can kind of take a step back, look at how did each draft class come together? What was their thought process? What's the fit? And how these guys will mix. And so it's this could be a really fun conversation.
It's been a while since we chatted with you. Last time we had you on was in 2021, 2022. Obviously, there's a lot going on, but they only had 3 picks in 2021. This year, they had 10 guys. And overall, I just want to know, how would you grade this 23 Seahawks draft class?
I was a fan, big fan. And obviously, with multiple picks early, you're going to have a higher chance of getting good players. I don't do draft grades, but what I do is I rank 1 through 32 my favorite draft classes. And Seattle came in at number 4 for me. And again, with 2 first-round picks and a bunch of other high picks, I mean, there's a good chance you're going to end up high on those because you're getting better players. But I just thought they hit a home run with what they did. In my 7-round mock draft that I came out with a couple weeks ago, I just love the fit of JSN at 20. I mean, that was one that it made so much sense. It's one of those that you wanted to mock it into existence because you want to see it. And you know what? That's how it played out. I did think Smith-Njigba would go ahead somewhere 11 to 20. That's where he was expected to go. I didn't think he would make it all the way to 20. But it turns out he did. And, they got a heck of a player. And, really, I mean, you could go round by round and look at and understand the process. And you're getting a really good player, even if maybe a few of the picks were a surprise. But that's okay. That's why we love the draft. So it doesn't always go chalk. Sometimes teams keep us on our toes and make some surprise picks. And, that definitely happened a few times this year.
Speaking of surprises, were you surprised that the Seahawks skipped on Jalen Carter at 5, especially considering he was available there and they didn't take him?
I don't know that I was surprised, just because I was open for anything with Jalen Carter because he was such a wild card. The talent is undeniable. The block destruction, his ability to win in different ways, not only being quick and powerful, but also skilled. It's a very rare package of traits. But obviously the off-field, the maturity concerns, that lingers. And that's something that not everybody was comfortable with. And so nothing was really going to surprise me with Jalen Carter. Now, was I surprised they ended up going corner? Yes, definitely. A corner over, you think about like Tyree Wilson was there. You think about all the different directions it could have gone. Corner was not one of those that I thought was a realistic possibility for them. And, again, this is so what Pete and John, they've been leading this franchise for 14 years now. And
their 14th draft together. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And this is the first time they drafted a corner in the first round. And this is after 1 year after they hit on 2 day 3 corners last year. And, you feel like it's a position that if there was ever a position they don't have to draft early, it's corner, because especially this year, it's a deep, deep group. If they wanted to add another corner, they could have waited until the 3rd, 4th round to do so. This just is all about the player at 6 or at 5 and Devon Witherspoon and how much they liked him. So the fact that they drafted Witherspoon was more of a surprise for me than they passed on Carter.
Let's talk about Devon, his name is going to throw me off all year just because it's Devon and looks like Devon. But anyway, I picked him number 5 out of Illinois. There's a lot we could talk about this guy, but as I've watched a little bit of film on him since the draft, I want to know your feeling on what Seattle is getting on Devon, specifically as a coverage guy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, he's he can play press. He's very patient in press. Does a nice job staying on top of routes. He can play off coverage. His ability to click and close is outstanding. We throw around the term instincts with corners and defensive backs. And sometimes it's hard to necessarily articulate what you mean, but when you say instincts with Witherspoon, it's pretty easy. When you watch him, you see those instincts. It leads to ball production. He had 17 passes defended as a senior. He's very, very aggressive. But at the same time, he's responsible with his aggressiveness. He doesn't take himself out of place necessarily. He trusts his eyes, and he's aggressive, but he does it responsibly. So the aggressiveness that he plays with, the instincts, the ball awareness, his understanding of spatial relationships, is really, really impressive. So man, zone, off coverage, you want him to jam. He can do all these things. He is really a complete corner, and that's obviously what you want. It doesn't matter if you make a defensive coordinator change. It doesn't matter if you make a schematic change. You want guys that you could leave on the field in any situation. You want to play inside? He could do that, no problem. You want to play outside? He can match up, even though he is under 6 foot and he's only 185 pounds. And he's probably not getting much bigger than that. So the size wasn't ideal, not elite for a top 5 pick. But everything else you just love about him. And the fact that he ran a 4.43 at his pro day just a couple of weeks before the draft, that was kind of the cherry on top. I'm sure that was kind of like the Seahawks loved him on film, loved everything else about him. But then he ran a 4.43 and it's like, okay, that's just check that box. We feel great about him.
After the draft, like Pete Carroll I don't know if he could give a higher compliment, strangely, to a corner by comparing his instincts that you mentioned to Troy Polamalu, and he compared him to Jamal Adams, 2 guys that you just see causing hell, usually at the line of scrimmage with their just the way they can just time stuff up. I was watching a little bit of Devon as a play in the Michigan game where a guy goes in motion and Devon doesn't follow him, and it just so happens that right at the snap, he just smokes the running back, number 23, whoever that is. Tough cat, because Devon smoked him a couple times. Are there any corners that because Pete used 2 safeties to compare that instinctual stuff? Any corners maybe that you've seen with that same type of instincts and anticipation?
I think Denzel Ward, Ohio State, one of the highest paid corners in the league. You see some of those flashes. I think Ward hasn't been maybe as consistent, but you see the speed, you see the quick reaction. And that's what you see with Witherspoon. This is a guy that the drive quickness that he plays with, and the ability to play all those different coverages and having the awareness and the eye balance. That's something that's so big with corners. You have to have there's confident, and then there's cornerback confidence. Like you have to be even more confident than most other positions. And that's what he has. He's some corners, they'll lock on the receiver and they won't look and try to find the football because they're too afraid to stop looking at the receiver and finding where he is. Others will get stuck on the ball and the quarterback and they lose sight of the receiver. Witherspoon does a great job with his eye balance. So he's keeping an eye on both the receiver, the route combination, and also the quarterback, the backfield, and the ball. His ability to balance all of that is really, really impressive. I mean, it takes not only the vision, but that confidence that I'm talking about to trust yourself, to maintain those relationships, those spatial relationships, and then trust what your eyes are telling you. Process everything in a split second to have that reaction quickness to go. So yeah, you see that all over his film, and I think that maybe like a Denzel Ward, you could see some of that with Cleveland Browns.
Chris, that's a new one for us. Eye balance,
Right?
That is,
I've never.
I like that. It makes sense though, Dan. That's right. That's
Yeah.
And you're right, Dan. Cornerback confidence is just a different level of confidence on the field, man. People give corners is shit on Twitter and on the press box in Seattle when the ball gets thrown over a guy's head and the corner goes like he waves like it's the incomplete and like he didn't do anything. It's like you guys don't understand. Corners are just wired different. In that corner's mind, he forced that incompletion because that's just how their brains work.
Yeah.
Last thing on Devon, he's gonna have high expectations, not because of just the draft status, because he's around the same spot Sauce just went in terms of pick. He's playing opposite Tariq, who just balled out as a 5th round pick. So do you see, just with all those expectations in mind, do you see a guy who could maybe match what Sauce or what Tariq was able to do as a rookie last season?
Well, obviously those two guys, they found the football, and they got those interceptions. And, can Witherspoon make the same type of impact in the stat sheet? That will be a big thing for him. But, he has the talent to match up. Obviously the big difference between Witherspoon and those guys, the size. And so can Witherspoon from day one, I mean, I'm not worried about the tenacity, the ability to match up in terms of like on the competitive mentality, but just size wise, obviously it's a different thing having to go up and, face some, a Mike Evans or, some of the bigger receivers in the NFL when, you're under 6 foot and there's only so much you can do. So how he adapts to NFL wide receivers, that's obviously a little bit of an unknown at this point. But if he comes out and has a season that's close to Sauce, I don't think that'd be too surprising. He has all the talent, all the ingredients to do so.
And Dane, Chris and I, this might as well be called the Jaxon Smith-Njigba to Seattle fan club ahead of the draft. We were just huge. Like you talk about mocking it to make it happen. I had to talk myself into other picks at 20 because at the Athletic we do so many mocks. I did like 5. Yeah. I can't just keep picking. Jaxon. We're trying to sell subscriptions, but I was just like kept landing at 20. Like, shit, if he's there, why would you take anyone else? Me and Chris have talked about why we love the pick for Seattle. Why do you love the fit with Jackson's skill set, with what Geno does, and what we've seen the offense look like under Shane Waldron in Seattle?
Yeah, and obviously they've been missing that reliable third wide receiver option. They just haven't been able to find it behind DK and Tyler Lockett. So, think about what that offense could look like where you drop in a dependable slot, a guy that is going to force defenses to really game plan for him. And that's Jaxon Smith-Njigba. That's exactly what he does best. There's a lot of debate about, okay, is he a slot only? Can he play outside? And I think he can, but you want this guy in space. That's what he does really, really well as a route runner. And he's so skilled. I mean, you think about all the wide receiver talent that CJ Stroud has played with, from Garrett Wilson to Chris Olave, Marvin Harrison Jr., all these guys. I mean, he says pretty clearly Jackson's the best route runner he's ever played with in his life. So high praise coming from his quarterback. This is a guy that knows how to uncover, and that's half the battle. The ball skills are terrific. And I just keep coming back to, because I struggled with the Smith-Njigba evaluation. I know some teams had like a 3rd round grade on him, teams that don't value slot. He's not a burner. I mean, I could throw on the tape where a linebacker catches him from behind. Obviously not ideal. But I keep coming back to 2 things. When you scout the receiver position, there's a million different things, criteria you could go by, but it comes down to 2 things. Can you get open? Can you catch the football? And Smith-Njigba does those 2 things at a very, very high level. And if you're going to start with those 2 things, that's a great place to start, because again, he can uncover because of his route running. That short area agility is outstanding. He understands how to set up defensive backs. And even after the catch, he has a really 6th sense for, as soon as he catches the ball, he knows everything around him. He has such an awareness for where defenders are, where those pursuit angles are coming from. So even though he's not a burner where he's just going to run away from guys, he has that awareness to maximize those plays after the catch. I mean, you don't want to always go back to that bowl game against Utah, but that put everything on full display, from the tracking and ball skills to the route running to the ability to skirt defenders after the catch. So no, I'm with you guys. I mean, this is one of those fits that just made a ton of sense. One of the most favorite fits of the entire draft. And it's going to be really fun to see how it plays out. Gino, wherever Gino was watching the draft, he was fist pumping when that pick was made.
Absolutely. And I compared him, just his style and his ability to get open and route running, to Amon-Ra St. Brown, who the Seahawks actually could have drafted a few years ago, but skipped on. I want to know your thoughts, Dane. Am I seeing the right thing with Amon-Ra St. Brown and JSN, or do you have another player that fits the mold even better than what JSN is offering to the Seahawks coming up this season?
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. I think that when you look at what St. Brown, what he does, best in terms of working from the slot and really stressing defenses because of the way that he can create mismatches. Whether he's lined up against a nickel or a safety, using the entire middle of the field, but also being able to stretch and, he can run a corner route. He can run a post route. I mean, you can do so many different things with that. Or just, let him run a screen, get up the ball in his hands and, let him go make something happen. I think maybe he has just a little bit more, maybe he's a little more dangerous with the ball in his hands than Smith-Njigba is. But I think in terms of style and fit, I do think that makes a lot of sense.
Okay. And then also real quick, actually, I'll save it. Go ahead, Mike.
Are we moving to running back now? Because you threw some shade at me in our little pre-draft notes. This is crazy shade. Go ahead. I want you to ask the question the way you have it in our Google Doc, so I can address the shade here.
Not a problem. So Mike may not like where the Seahawks drafted this next pick, and that's Zach Charbonnet.
Yeah.
And Mike is big on the value of the running back, where you can get Zach. And great, I understand where Mike is going at with that. But for me, I thought it was a great pick because I think he's going to be a playmaker. And at this point, the Seahawks only had two guys at running back, DJ Dallas and Ken Walker. To add Zach Charbonnet, I'm thinking this is money. I don't care if they got him at 37 overall. Mike would tell you, you could wait and get him later on. My question is, am I crazy to think that Zach's going to come in and be the playmaker that he was at UCLA and create a dynamic offense now with JSN, DK, Tyler, and then have this guy coming out, hopefully hitting in on some screens? But I just want to know, am I losing my mind for thinking that he's going to be a crazy playmaker within that offense?
I love Zach Charbonnet. I mean, I have no questions about the player. My questions are about just what's the offense going to look like? How are they going to deploy these two guys? Are we going to see more 21 personnel? Are we going to, is this really going to be just a workload where they share the carries? How is this going to work? That is going to, because to me, the answer is kind of like a TBD, because I love the player. It's just a matter of what does the vision look like? And, Charbonnet is a better player in the passing game than Walker is. The way I kind of look at it is Walker is going to be your home run hitter. Like, he has that speed element, the ability to make guys miss. It doesn't, the run design doesn't always go according to plan, but that's all right. Let Walker do his thing, and he's going to pick up these chunk yardage. Where with Charbonnet, he doesn't have nearly that type of speed or dynamic ability, but he is better with the running back specific traits, the ancillary things, talking about tempo and pacing and vision, and then also catching the ball out of the backfield. That's going to be a big part of what Charbonnet brings to this offense. So your home run hitter is Walker, your doubles hitter is Charbonnet, and how they complement each other within the structure of this offense is something that I cannot wait to see. We just got done talking about Smith-Njigba and how that's going to help the passing game. What is this going to do for the running game? I'm really interested to find out. I know Seattle's offense went from must see to, okay, drop what I'm doing and I'm watching them no matter what, because I'm really eager to find out how this all works.
Not so much shade, Mike, but I feel you.
I'm gonna read the go because Kristen went to. The question says, Mike may not like where the Seahawks drafted him, but I don't care. Am I wrong for thinking Zach Charbonnet is gonna come in and be a playmaker with the Seahawks as he was at UCLA? The shade is that it implies that Mike doesn't think that Charbonnet will ball out. He was picked 52. I do think he will ball out. It will be like you said, Dane. Ken making the big plays, dancing, and then when they need someone to just run through someone's face for a first down on 3rd or whatever, they'll probably go to Zach because Ken did a lot of dancing last year.
Yeah.
And he had a lot of plays that were negative or for 0 yards because it was, they're running power and he's wanting to bounce it outside. And it's like, come on, no. get what's there, brother. Like, figure that out. And Zach won't have, from what I've seen, more. Zach won't have that issue. Just like he'll get downhill when need be. So I just get that clear, man. I like Zach. I like the pick. I just selfishly
value.
I would have liked him to beforehand trade up for Keanu Benton, who I think the Steelers took like 3 picks ahead. That's the defensive tackle from Wisconsin. Or when Keanu was gone, take Byron Young, defensive tackle from Alabama. Those are the 2 guys that I like. I think the Raiders grabbed Byron with pick 69 a little later. So that's why I was like, do we need a running back here?
And that's why I said may not like where the Seahawks drafted him. I don't care though.
That's fair. That's fair. I do think Zach will ball out though. I just think the 1-2 punch. He's what they need after Ken was doing all that dancing and having all those negative runs. They do need someone who's just like, hey man, we're gonna run power. Yeah. So run power right here. Sometimes it really is just that simple. That's all I want to throw out there, Chris.
I did have a quick follow-up on JSN, and that is, I know we're going back to him after we just talked about Zach Charbonnet and running back, but where do you want to see improvements at the next level for JSN, especially with the Seahawks?
Yeah, I think part of it is, can he work outside? Can he beat press? That'll be a big thing for him. Just proving that he can do it. So he's not labeled as that slot only. Now it's okay if you're best in the slot, but to not be slot only, that's a big deal for him. So showing that he can beat press and really take on physical corners, that'll be a big thing that will dictate how exactly he's used. So we know he has the technique, the footwork to do it, the short area quickness. Does he have the physicality to match up with outside corners in the NFL and still get open? That'll be a big thing that I'll be looking forward to, Jason.
Got it. Okay. Let's look at the Seahawks 2nd round, 37th pick overall, and that's Derick Hall. Overall, do you think he is a good fit with the Seahawks and what he brings to the table?
Yeah, Derick Hall is one of those scheme diverse guys where I don't care what you're running. He's going to help your pass rush. You want him to stand up, he can do it. Hand on the ground, he can do it. You want him wide 9, he could do it. Tightly aligned to the tackle, he can do it. 6'3", 255 pounds. And this is also a theme with the Seahawks draft with these first 4 picks. You talk about high character guys who love football. Devon Witherspoon, obviously, I mean, it's as you can tell just from the tape how much he loves football. JSN, no questions there. Zach Charbonnet, this guy is, in terms of work ethic, top 10 in the draft probably. Just the coaches rave about Charbonnet and just how much work he puts in. And then Derick Hall, this guy, I had some scouts tell me that, hey, I'd put him in your first round mock because some teams are looking at Derick Hall and saying, like, yeah, maybe this other guy's a little more talented, maybe a little more gifted, but we know exactly what we're getting with Derick Hall, the person and the player. This guy will run through a brick wall for you. He's, going to bring it every single day. He is a true leader, team captain. And that's been a theme with these first 4 Seattle picks. But with, on the field skill set, is he a guy that has a fully formed plan especially with his counters and secondary moves? Not so much. I mean, he is a guy that wants to go, rush down the middle, just win with energy and speed. And a lot of times that works. I mean, you do that enough, sooner or later, you're going to get home. Now, if he can develop some more of the secondary stuff, so he's setting up blockers, and he's transitioning and sequencing his rush moves, that's where he could really be dangerous and even be better than we thought. So this is just, you're adding another bullet to the gun with a guy like this on your pass rush. And like I said, scheme diverse, doesn't matter what you want to do out there. He's going to help you get better.
Yeah, the interesting thing with Seattle's pass rushers that we've seen, also kind of funny, the Seahawks top 4 pass rushers this year will probably be Darrell Taylor, Chenanu Osu, Boye Mafe, and now Derick Hall. They're all like picked within like 15 picks of each other, I think.
Day
like,
2. Yeah.
Yeah, they're all like, I think Chenna was the earliest at pick 40, and I think Derek, who's the late? I think Darrell Taylor might be the latest at like pick 48. They're all just right in that range, similar builds, although Derek looks like a Spartan. Like you can see that on tape when he's got pads on. This dude is yoked up. But let's say that just in year 1, the way that Derek won rushing the passer with the speed to power, let's say that's just he doesn't develop those moves until later years. If that's all he has year 1, do you think he's good enough at that, converting speed to power and rushing the passer, to be effective as a rookie?
Effective meaning, he's going to give you, say, 7.5 sacks. Yeah, I think you can. A guy that's going to give you. Yeah, I think not every. He's not going to get a sack every game, but every other game, working as even if he's working as a sub rusher, I think he can give you that. Because again, I think with the speed that he brings and those long arm moves, the arm over moves, and the energy. I mean, he just doesn't quit. So I think he has that ability, and that's why you draft him as high as you did, because you feel like he's going to be an immediate contributor in your rotation. So yeah, it's really interesting how their rush depth chart is kind of made up, and it'll be interesting to see how they use these guys. Is it gonna be a true rotation, or are they going to really rely on one or more of these guys? And so adding Hall to the mix definitely makes them better.
You alluded to this early in the show about the 2023 NFL draft team by team rankings that you wrote, best and worst classes 1 through 32. Seahawks coming at number 4. And I saw your day 3 pick, who could surprise, is guard Anthony Bradford. Can you share with our audience what makes him a potential surprise for the Seahawks?
He fits exactly what the Seahawks want with their interior blockers, right? That wide-bodied, strong. It can be a mauler when he needs to be, but he's also athletic for that size. He's inconsistent right now because he's young. He literally turned 22 years old over the weekend. He has the strength in the run game where he can be a people mover, but needs to be more consistent with his angles, needs to be more consistent with his leverage. But these are coachable things. These are fixable things. It's more about experience than it's more about inexperience than lack of ability. He didn't have, he had 17 starts in his career at LSU. So he wasn't a guy that, and some of those came at tackle where, he wasn't a natural. He's more of a guard, an interior player. So, once he continues to get more coaching, more reps, I do think there's going to be a learning period for him where he's going to have to take his lumps. There'll be some rough patches, but in the 4th round to get a talent like this with the upside that he has, the value is outstanding. So really like where this guy could be in a year from now, especially 2 years from now. Just needs to stay off the ground, improve that balance, improve that consistency with his technique. So, he can be just more consistent overall. So I'm very, very bullish on Bradford and what he could be. I thought he might even go day 2. I know some teams were eyeing him as a possible pick later in the 3rd round. So I think the Seahawks were lucky to get him where they did.
Of all the draft buzzwords, and there's many of them, one of my favorites, like if I was like going into the draft, I'm small, but like Mauler would be like, I would want that on there somewhere. That just seems like it can't ever be wrong that you just fuck people up. That's great. It doesn't really matter what position you play. Like it's not super helpful, like long snapper or something, but man, just Mauler is a good junkyard dog. I love when that's in the scouting report. Junkyard dog is great. I'm drafting all of them junkyard dogs.
I'm pretty sure that was in Witherspoon, my Witherspoon report.
Yeah, I think it was.
That sums him up. Yeah. And Bradford, I mean, yeah, he wants to be a guy that gets his hands on you and puts you where he wants you to go. He wants to redirect. He wants to, be a people mover in the run game. And so, it sometimes, it needs to dial it back a little bit and just be more fundamentally sound. But yeah, give me the guys that, he have some athletic skill, but also has the strength to overwhelm defenders and really be a people mover.
Yeah, I love it. People mover is also great. Like, I'm a big fan of it. The draft has so many buzzwords. Some of them are like coded and not as fun to talk about, but like Mauler, junkyard dog. If you ever see it in somebody's scouting report, like you'd want him on like your pickup team in the park. Pete Carroll likes that analogy to use. Like, I want guys that I can, if I'm at the park, I'm picking him because I know we're either gonna win or we're gonna go down swinging. They got a bunch of guys like that in this draft. They went heavy on the trenches in day 3, not just with Bradford. They went with Oluwatimi, Cameron Young, Mike Morris, a ton of guys. They beefed up the trenches. A lot of people mocked pretty much every center there was in the Big Ten to Seattle at some point, whether it's John Michael Schmitz or Joe Tippmann, or I'm missing the kid from Ohio State. His name escapes me right now.
Whippler.
Thank you, guys. There were so many Big Ten centers I couldn't keep track. So they go with the guy from Michigan who won a ton of awards there. Olu, he's like the only guy they have really behind Evan Brown, who they signed in for agency at center. Do you see like starting caliber traits in this guy, despite him being a late round pick?
I did not. Now, if he gets pressed into action, I think he can hold his own. But I don't. In my opinion, my scouting report was he's never going to be a guy that you're not going to try and upgrade from. Like, even if he does end up being a starter, I think you're going to try and you're going to want to upgrade at some point. Even though he did, he cleaned up on the award circuit, the tape was okay. Like when I'm watching him, I didn't see any displacement. I didn't see necessarily power. Like some of those things we said about Bradford, you don't see with Oluwatimi. He's a fine mover. He's not a great athlete, but he's fine. He's not a bad athlete. He's not a slug out there. But I just don't know that it's going to be enough to, like, he's really, really smart. I think that the A+ character, another theme with this draft class that helps him as a player, but he's a center only, so he doesn't offer you much versatility. And I just question if he has the necessary shock in his hands, the ability to win one-on-one against NFL caliber defensive tackles on a consistent basis. So I think it was, I grade him as a 5th, 6th round pick. I think it's a fine pick in the 5th round to give you center depth. But if he's going to end up being the starter, I'm not sure that's going to be good enough for what you want to do at the position.
Which is why other guys were mocked higher. That explains that. Now, I think when you get in the 5th round, guys who just make the team are kind of a win once you start getting at that point. Unfortunately, it's kind of the reality of the biz there. I want to talk about another guy in the trenches. I mentioned the defensive tackles I wanted earlier. Defensive tackle was a really interesting position for Seattle this year because, like, you could have justified them using their top pick with one and taking Jalen Carter, who we discussed earlier. They don't grab one until far, far later in Cameron Young from Mississippi State. Mm-hmm. A lot smaller nose tackle. You have him at 6'3", 304. That's a big drop from guys like Brian Monet and Al Woods, who were playing at, I'll be nice and say 340, but probably much heavier. How does Cameron fit if he's asked to play, straight up 3-4 nose in Seattle?
When you watch him, the first thing that jumps out is his length. I mean, he is a really long player, and that helps him plug up the middle of the field. I mean, he does a really nice job doing that. And I was kind of surprised how many snaps he plays. I mean, he was on the field constantly. And so, like, with some nose tackles, you've got to manage those. He can't play more than 25 snaps a game. I mean, Cameron Young was always on the field and always finding a way to make an impact. So, I think that he looks the part. Maybe he's not that 330 pounds that you see with some nose tackles, but he's really long, and that helps him make plays. Biggest thing I worried about with him is how that length that I'm talking about, sometimes it was a deterrent because he would play high. not playing with knee bend. His pads are high. And it's hard to win blocks when you're not winning with leverage. So that was something that, especially, as a pass rusher, you're not going to be able to get that bull rush. In terms of achieving angles, blockers are able to get underneath them, turn them, seal off those run lanes. So for Cameron Young, can he play lower? Can he be more consistent with his pad level? And if he can, I see a guy that can play better than where he was drafted. He was he was drafted in the 4th round. That's just right around where I had him graded as a 4th round pick. But I wouldn't be surprised at all if he becomes an important part of the defensive line rotation. And he has that type of ability.
This will be the last one for you. I won't run through all of the rest of the day 3 picks they had. I'm going to just if there's anything that stands out to you about any of the other guys, they took Mike Morris from Michigan, defensive. They're going to have him play defensive tackle. He was 5th round pick, 151. Took Jerrick Reed the 2nd. I love guys who go by the 2nd instead of junior. It's amazing. Jerrick Reed the 2nd. It's kind of safety nickel in the 6th round out of New Mexico. And then they got, which sounds like a junkyard dog, and Kenny McIntosh, running back, pick 237. I know you said Anthony Bradford was your favorite day 3 pick of those of all the class, but of those remaining guys we haven't talked about, is anything unique stand out that you loved? Anything you found out that was cool in the reporting on them? Anything like that?
With Kenny McIntosh, you were talking earlier about, Charbonnet, and you can find those guys later. McIntosh is kind of that guy who, as a pass catch, if you're looking for an upgrade in the passing game, that's what McIntosh does. That's what he does best, is catch the football. He had a really weird pre-draft process because his Senior Bowl was good. It was fine. Then his combine, his pro day, his testing was well below average. And it's like, okay, what are we doing? Like, tape is pretty good, but his testing is not good at all. So how do you take this all into account? And I think as a pass catcher specifically, that's where he's going to make his money. So McIntosh, and maybe a guy who can help on special teams as well. Jerrick Reed is a guy who, really, I didn't watch him until maybe like November. And then once I did, it was like, okay, there's something here. This guy flies all over the place. He a lot of tackles. He'll force fumbles. He gets his hands on the football. And so, the versatility that I think he brings is really, really interesting. Special teams. He can be a nickel. He can be, play single high. He can do that. He has the range to do that. So, I think that he has, you think about his cornerback background, you think about all the different ways you could utilize him on the back end because of that, all the, the range and the aggressive read react stuff that he does. But I think on special teams as well. So I did really like that Jerrick Reed pick later in the draft.
Yeah, that's one of those undersized. The last 2 guys that they got, Jerrick and Kenny, they're just that's junkyard dog. Fight for everything. All my life I had to fight, chip on my shoulder the size of a boulder type energy. Now this should be a fun, because I think they got a fun class here. They've got me hyped for the class, particularly at the top.
Oh, yeah. They set the bar so high last year, right? That it's like, okay, what are you going to do now? What are you going to do to the 2nd year in a row? And I like where they're headed. With the 1st round, obviously, I think they hit 2 home runs in the 2nd round. Even if, you want to debate the value, whatever, you still got 2 good players. And I keep coming back to the common theme throughout every pick is that guys are tough, guys that love football, guys that are, you feel like you know what you're getting. There's no, we talked about Jalen Carter maybe being possibly the pick leading up to the draft. Their entire draft was full of non-Jalen Carters, guys that you don't have to worry about the maturity. You don't have to worry about the football character. These guys, it's ingrained in these guys, and just really interesting to see that be a common theme from start to finish.
Dane, we thank you so much, man. We know you got to run. We appreciate you giving us the time and giving us some insight on these guys. We are really excited for this season. Is there anything you got to plug, anything you want to add before we let you go?
No, check out my favorite draft classes, and I came out with a 2024 mock draft today. Just kind of it's a watch list. That's it. Think of it as a watch list of here are 32 names for next year. Keep on the radar. And then if you don't have the draft guide yet, go download the draft guide. It's all these guys, you can find everything out about them. The undrafted class, and it's a really handy resource to have by your side. So if you don't have the beast yet, make sure you download it on the Athletic.
There it is.
You guys have
Dane,
to, man. Get
thank
the
you
beat.
so much.
No, thank you guys. My pleasure.
All
Have a
right,
good
there
one,
he is.
Dane. Peace.